Hello, friends. I'm Nicole. Welcome back to the School of Self Worth. I'm going to keep today's episode short and sweet in honor of this really important practice and topic: why being emotionally reactive makes stress worse, and how to break that cycle for good. Emotional reactivity is a huge topic for my clients, and it's one of the first things that they work on when they get inside your clear calling. So I decided to put an episode together for all of you to start to look in more depth at what is causing emotional reactivity and how to really get rid of it for yourself. This one is so good. And before we get started, if you are a high achieving Asian American corporate leader who wants to permanently end emotional reactivity and develop your authentic voice, DM me power at Nicole Song on Instagram and let's chat. Okay, let's dive into today's topic. So let's start today by painting a little picture. Say that it is time for your annual performance review. And then you have the time set with your boss on your calendar, and then you get the review in your email for you to look at before you two go talk about it. And as soon as you see it pop up, you freeze. You feel clenching in your stomach or your chest. You're sweating and you're like, I don't think I can even look at this. You put off opening it till the very last second because you are dreading what it's going to say in there. And you are so afraid of everything your boss might say. And all you can think of are all the things that you should have done differently since the last performance review. If this is happening to you, you are in emotional reaction to this work feedback. And are you continuously in this cycle of trying not to be reactive, but you feel really helpless when you get that email calling with your performance review, when you get unexpected feedback from somebody in the moment, when you hear from a coworker about how they want you to do something different? If this is happening to you, it means you're just in this constant state of reaction in your workplace. And so we want to really get into this. And I used to be so guilty of this as well. So I'm actually going to take you to the era when I was a yoga teacher. And I actually worked for a studio where the way to become a teacher there is you had to teach a class to several other yoga teachers. So it wasn't even a class to regular students, just to yoga teachers. And at the end of the class, we would sit down in a circle and they would all give you feedback. Yeah, it was terrifying. It was terrifying. And it was really hard for me because I had to do this a lot at the beginning of my yoga teaching career until one day I realized what the real issue that was going on for me, that was causing clenching in my head and my chest and constant nerves and feeling judged. The real issue that was going on is I was not clear on the most important thing. And what I was doing was giving my self-worth away to the feedback. I was giving my power away to what other people thought of me. So you might be doing this, and you could keep doing this because this is, in fact, a huge piece of the puzzle that we need to work on for you to actually get rid of emotional reactivity. Or you could do it and you also cannot do it. And you could not learn how to separate your self worth from your job and your career. It's totally up to you. And the thing is, you most likely learn this from your family, especially in Asian American households where the collective culture is the value. It's always about harmony, it's always about everybody being good. And so you were conditioned to believe that your job was important because it would make your family proud. It would make your family, the collective rise up in standing. And so your job was to always pursue to the highest level a job that really made your family look good. And so then you started to collapse success at work with who you are. And that became one and the same. And until you can separate out that self worth piece of who you are from your job, this emotional reactivity is going to continue. That cycle will keep going. And so now let's get back to why this is also making your stress worse. Why you're reactive before you even know what they're going to say. What if your boss, by the way, was going to praise you or tell you that you're amazing? You really don't know, right? But instead, you're in worry, you're in self doubt, you're giving your power away, you're in fear, and you're like, maybe I'm going to lose my job. And you have all kinds of thoughts inside ruminating and blocking you from the truth. And then there's this next layer, which I'm not going to get into in depth today, but this is an important one to understand is like, what are you doing with that feedback? Are you taking it personally? Are you adapting and pivoting to have it support you? And there is a more powerful choice with that one that you could be making as well. But here's the thing, the fastest way to get out of this reactive stress cycle is emotional mastery. And this is really important because when you are already feeling a little bit stressed and anxious and tired, and then you're emotionally reactive, it all compounds. And it actually makes you, this is something where you start to think about it all night. It might keep you awake. It might wake you up in the morning, and it makes you short and reactive with other people who are not even involved in the feedback you're getting from your boss. Or maybe somebody mentioned something that did get put into your review, and now you're really like losing your stuff and you're like, I don't know if I can be in this job anymore. And then it just cascades. What we're wanting for you, this is the place we want you to be, is emotional mastery. This is when you feel cool, clean when an email from your boss comes in. You don't get reactive when someone gives you feedback you don't like or we're not anticipating. You don't get surprised by people telling you something you weren't expecting. You don't ruminate all night and you don't beat yourself up for not doing better. When we're in that place where we actually are cool and collected and calm, that's when we really are in emotional mastery. That is when you start to show up and develop your voice and you start to speak up. One of my clients, Allie, told me as soon as she started working on the practices inside your clear calling, literally within 1 week, she had previously been getting feedback to speak up more. She just naturally started to do it. It wasn't anything that she had to force. It wasn't anything that she had to make happen. It just started to come. So emotional mastery has so many benefits, and it's really, really huge for Asian women to start to own and develop who they are from this truly authentic place instead of from this stressed out place. It's kind of similar, like all things, to have emotional mastery, it takes practice. It's just like if you're going to take a dance class, but then you never practice outside of dance class. And then every week you're like, I cannot keep up because you're not really working on it. Sometimes we just have to be like, all right, it's time for me to do a little bit of practice. So today I wanted to give you some simple tools to start to change this pattern. These questions are designed for you to start to see things in a different way. And it is part of the framework that I teach inside your clear calling. So here are the 2 steps to emotional mastery for you to engage with today. And so after you hear these questions, I want you to message me on Instagram at Nicole Song. Tell me the answers, get some accountability for actually executing on these things and doing these things, get some support on it, because sometimes these questions can bring up a lot, and they can bring up a lot for you to start to analyze and start to understand. And that's where a coach is really helpful and someone is really supportive. So message me, let me know the answers to these questions, and we can see what would be a pathway forward for you. Okay, here we go. Here's the first question. When was the last time I did really well with my emotions? When do I do the best? When do I have that cool, calm, collected feeling? And I want you to go back to that day, and I want you to see what else happened. Did you get enough sleep? What did you eat? Did you exercise? Did you put boundaries on your day? What were you doing with the day? Who did you talk to? You want to have a sense of like this, was it really a spacious day? Your calendar was much more free. You didn't have as many things going on outside of work. Maybe things were really calm on the home front. Like we're looking for a really complete picture of what happens when you're doing well with your emotions. And then once you've done this, I want you to write down all the things that were happening that day. Maybe you took a lunch break, you got to go outside for a walk, like whatever it is. Because now, once you have that picture, your job is to replicate this as many times as possible, like as often as possible. Everybody always has some days where they do feel really good, and we want to capture it, right? Like that's like lightning in a bottle. Like you really want to know what was creating that experience for yourself so that you can truly start to say, okay, I'm going to start to take this apart, look at all of the pieces, and what can you start to understand about that that's going to really support you and to see it. And I'll give you an example for me. Like, so I taught yoga for many years, and I often was grounded because I was doing yoga, and also teaching yoga would keep me grounded. And so when I started my business and I was no longer doing as much yoga, I was like, okay, how do I replicate that experience if I'm not doing yoga all day long or not teaching yoga all day long? What do I need to do to help myself stay in a really grounded place? And I found that like movement, for example, was really important for me. So walking became an essential part of how I did it. So I'm just kind of starting to break it down for you because I want you to really be curious. And I want you to say, okay, like I know there are some days that I'm good, and to acknowledge those days, and then to actually figure out and focus your attention on having those days be the norm instead of the exception. They might be the exception right now, and that's also totally okay. We're not here to beat ourselves up or to be hard on ourselves because that actually makes the emotional reactivity worse. We're here to say, okay, let me just be a detective and investigate and find out more. Okay, so make sure that you DM me on Instagram at Nicole Song with anything that you found from that question. And then here's the second question is, when was the last time I celebrated myself? Like truly deeply celebrated how awesome I am. And if your first immediate answer is I don't celebrate myself, well, now is the time to start. When we are in this pattern of outsourcing self worth to other people's opinions and giving our power away to like your boss's performance review or feedback people are giving to you, typically it's because we want to be celebrated and we don't know how. And the thing is, they actually might be celebrating you in that performance review. Like any good boss will definitely celebrate you. But if your attention is constantly focused on what you're doing wrong, it's because your attention on a daily basis is always on what you're doing wrong instead of celebrating what is going right. So I want you to be really curious. If you don't celebrate yourself, this could be a huge wake up call for you to start to say, oh my gosh, like I actually need to celebrate myself a little bit more. I need to acknowledge all the things that I'm doing. I need to acknowledge that I have wins. And there's like so much in my life that is actually really positive and good instead of having yourself focus on the negative all the time. You know, we have a negativity bias in our brains. It's something to understand does exist up there. And your job is to start to counter it with the celebration. And I bet you will find, I find for so many of my clients, some of the early practices in your clear calling are so simple that within a week, like with Allie or other people, people are finding change happening. Like they don't even, and they don't have to force it. We're doing it with 5 to 10 minute practices per day, but just the act of doing it creates an immediate shift. So, this last question is, when is the last time I celebrated myself? And really to do it, right? Your next step is to do it. Celebrate yourself in some form. And then tell me what you are doing to celebrate yourself. Like, how are you acknowledging yourself and your wins? Tell me on Instagram. I want to hear from you. Okay, so that's it. Those are the two simple steps to get yourself to emotional mastery and to be in those practices. And if you're an Asian American woman who wants the full blueprint, you want the exact 3 steps I teach to all of my clients in your clear calling, where we really get deep into this work for you to see and to act upon this every single day, that emotional responsibility and mastery is your norm rather than reactivity, and you want to master emotions daily so that you finally break this cycle, DM me mastery at Nicole Song on Instagram and let's chat. All right, friends, thank you so much. I'll see you next week.